back. Another day of notation. What we're going to do is continue going over the basics of notation, set a strong foundation for you guys. What I want to do first is connect the piano to the notation. Generally, when you're studying music, it's what's called core, and the core is theory, so you understand how it works. Musicianship, so that you can hear it and perform it and write it down, and then piano skills, which is those three things are all part of a core. It's generally could be condensed into one class, which is kind of this class, but they break out into separate classes as you move forward in your musical career. Okay, so what we have in front of us is a keyboard or a piano, and you can see that on the top here. Let me show you. On the top section here is a keyboard, and on this section is our notation. And we have a grand staff, so we have a treble clef, we have a bass clef. This is a shorthand. We'll see in a minute a little bit more elaborate form of this. And then here are our ledger lines, and then these ledger lines just continue up. So in other words, there's these two short ones, and then for the programming purposes, the rest of the ledger lines are just set here ahead of, above and below the grand staff. So, but generally when you would write it, you wouldn't write these long lines. They would still stay short like this all the way up. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is go over octave identification. Generally speaking, a C in any octave is still the C. Remember, we talked about the musical alphabet that repeats over and over again. So this note right here is C. You can hear that. And it's known as middle C, and the way we write it down is actually called C4. So C4 is middle C. So if we go up an octave, then it'll be C5, up an octave C6, C7, C8. It actually goes off the top of our keyboard here. It would be right there. We can see this higher note here. So C8, C7, C6, C5, C4, middle C, C3, C2, C1. Yeah, I love that. Okay, and so these designations are real organized. So you wouldn't generally, when you're talking to a musician, say, "Oh yeah, play an F sharp 7." They would see that as a different thing. They'd say, "Oh, okay," and they play a chord for you. So this is more of an understanding. And I guess if you're doing a lot of computer music and you're looking at 20th century music in a theory class, to be more specific, you would say, everybody would be on the same page, knowing that you're talking about octave designation when you're talking about C4 or C5 versus other things. Okay, so we'll start at the bottom. The lowest note is a 0, a sharp 0, B0. Now this is A sharp, it's also a B flat, but we'll go into that later. Right now, this program does sharps only, but there's sharps and flats. And I will introduce accidentals in this video. So A0, B0, and then the next one up is C1. And so therefore, all of the notes between C1 and B1 are all in the 1 designation. So, and you can notice the notation goes up as well. So here's C1, C sharp 1, D1, D sharp 1, E1, F, F sharp 1, G, G sharp 1, A1. Speaking of A1, I had this great steak the other day. Okay, anyways, A sharp 1, B1, and then the next one will be, everybody now, C2. Yeah, that's right. So C2, and it will continue on. So C2, till B2, then C3. Moving on. Notice the score, how it's rising. G, G sharp, A3, A sharp 3, B3, and then C3, or middle C. And notice how this software cleverly connects the bass clef and the treble clef. As we saw in the last video, middle C could be connected to the treble clef or it could be connected to the bass clef. Here, the clefs are so close together that it's simultaneous, that it's one connected grand staff. So these are the octave designations that we can go through. So therefore, that would be G4, G5, G6. Isn't there a song, G6 or something? Okay, and then C sharp, C sharp 4, C sharp 5, C sharp 6, and on and on and on. Okay, so hopefully you understand that these octave designations help us understand that these letters repeat, and then therefore they go through the different octaves. Okay, let's move on. All right, we're back with our good old buddy finale. So what I want to do is go over accidentals now. Accidentals are ways to raise or lower a pitch. So what we know so far is that a note like B is a tone, and if we want to go higher, we raise or lower according to the musical alphabet. And these symbols will go up with pitch or down with pitch. But we can also do increments of half steps. So half steps are basically the connected notes on the piano. So from a white note to a black note is a half step. And I'll clarify that later. Okay, so let's look in our notation program here. Here is G. It happens to be G clef. Here's a G. And if we want to raise it a half a step, then we can go to G sharp. And therefore, the sharp sign looks like a little tic-tac-toe. Notice that the center of the sharp is on the line. So if we went up to a space, then the tic-tac-toe or the sharp center would also be in the space. Let's go back to G sharp. So between G sharp, we could go down to G flat, or we can stay at G natural. So I'm going to leave this one to G natural. I'm going to start another note, and this is going to be G sharp. So we can hear the half step between these two. And then we can go one step further to G double sharp, which is kind of an X. Again, the X would then raise with it. So if we went up, the X would be in the space. X is on the line. Same thing with the others. And then we can go back to, let's do G sharp and then G natural. We can hear it progress down. So this is G, up a half step to G sharp, up another half step to G double sharp, and then down a half step to G sharp, and then to G. Let's listen to that. Okay, and that would be the sharp side. Let's go on the flat side. Let's take this back. Okay, so G going down a half a step would be G flat. And then G going down an additional half step would be G double flat. This, for me, is much more intuitive. You would say it's a flat and a double flat. You see two of them. On the sharp side, there's not two sharps. The two sharps become an X. So just be aware of that. Okay, and we'll go back up a half step and then back here. So let's listen to it going down a half step to G, from G to G flat, down another half step from G flat to G double flat, up to G flat, up another half step to G. Here we go. Okay, and hopefully you can hear how these accidentals move the pitches up on the sharp side, move them up by half steps, or on the flat side, move them down by half steps. All right.